Hello and welcome to today's video. My name's Scott and today I'm going to be talking you through the latest Microsoft Loop app that's been released by Microsoft. Now, Microsoft Loop app components have been around for a little bit longer. In fact, we have another video covering all about what they can do inside a Microsoft Office, but very much they can give you an element of content to be synchronized across your Office apps that all syncs back into one single place. It's a great way to be able to have one piece of content and have many copies, and it all goes back into that one single truth, meaning you don't have to pull it all back together again. And the Microsoft Loop app has now been released to bring in the idea of a workspace for you to bring in a team and collaborate on a given idea or an area of work for you to bring through on those ideas. Now, I know what you're going to say. How on earth does this work when you have Microsoft Teams, Yammer, we have SharePoint, we have Microsoft Project, we have Microsoft Excel, we even have Microsoft Lists. Why on earth do we need another project tool inside of Microsoft 365? And to that, I can totally understand your concerns. And in fact, have a look at today's video and you may well find a place that you can actually use it for in the future alongside all of those tools. Not forgetting that a piece of content in Loop can be sent into Outlook and Teams and also in Word in the future. So I have to copy a piece of content and keep it all in sync. So it does have a purpose, right? But I do understand it can be a little bit confusing when you have those other tools about where this fits in the overall ecosystem. The best way I like to think about this is it's a digital canvas for me to get some ideas together with my colleagues before going into that structure that I would have inside of Microsoft Teams using channels and meetings. It's effectively a digital canvas to throw some ideas. Now that could be, of course, said the same about OneNote, but that is a very different purpose. But I'm sure today you'll be able to take some ideas from today's video, apply them into your own business scenarios and find a place to use Microsoft Loop. So on that note, let's go into Microsoft Loop and check out what's possible and talk you through all of those new features. So let's head into Microsoft Loop. Now you can get to Loop by going to the browser, going to loop.microsoft.com, and in the future you'll also no doubt see in the office.com waffle for you to have quick access to. Now in this video we can see we're using the preview version of Loop, which means it's not the actual version that's been released to the public, but in that sense a lot of the capability you're going to see in Loop today will align to what I'm going to show you in this tutorial. So when we go to the first screen in Loop, we see some of our most recent Loop projects we're working with as well. And we can go ahead and create ourselves a new Loop project to begin collaborating as a team. Let's go and click on the plus button to add a new workspace. And I'm going to create a new workspace for some of my marketing planning for a product we're releasing very soon. Now at this point, I'm not creating a Microsoft team because I simply want to get some ideas with the team together so we can understand the direction, and then later, of course, I can create a Microsoft team. So let's go ahead, give it a workspace name. Once we've done that, we can also give it an icon, select the plus button, and we can select a relevant icon for our marketing. So I'm going to use a keyword of marketing, and let's see what's in here that we can use within Loop. So this will do here. And then we can also invite the team. So if you have a team you want to bring in, you certainly can. At this point, I'll bring in one of my colleagues that's supporting the marketing planning, which is going to be Megan. I'm going to type in Megan's name and it will find Megan in the drop down here, and I'm going to select continue. Now immediately what Loop will then do is try and find relevant content that it thinks is associated to the workspace we're creating. This content exists in your SharePoint or OneDrive environment or Teams, allowing you to pull relevant content through into your Loop workspace. So there's a few documents here I'd like to bring in relation to our marketing work. So I'm going to bring in the international marketing strategies. So I'm going to select that here, and also international marketing campaigns as well. So I brought those two documents into our workspace. Go ahead and click on create, and it will now create our workspace for us. Now you'll notice we get an immediate untitled page straight in front of us. Now that untitled page is effectively our canvas, and we can have multiple pages inside of our Loop app. So this page may be dedicated to the actual marketing plan itself, the purpose of what we're trying to market, or maybe the product itself as well. Now, much like OneNote and other tools like SharePoint, you can make these pages a little bit more pretty. So what we can do is add a cover to our page. Select add cover, and we can select from a gallery of different art we want to use on our page. Now, this is limited versus what we have in SharePoint today. In SharePoint, we have lots of professional images. In the preview version of Loop, we don't have that today. So I can bring in one of these images, but I can't effectively extend it past this point in the preview build. Let's go ahead and use this kind of cloud with a few ladders. We can now see we can add our cover. We can also add a further icon. This page is going to be dedicated to the scope. So I'm going to go and type in scope. So even here, yeah, I'll go ahead and use this 100 points icon here, and we can give the page a name. So I'm going to call it Project Scope for Marketing. Click away from that, and we can now begin adding content. Now, visibly, before we go into adding content, you will see on the left-hand side that icon and the name has been updated in the marketing planning. Also, beneath that are those two documents I brought into this workspace outside in my SharePoint environment. I can click into them and it will open a separate browser tab and allow me to go and read that content. So it's not embedded inside of the actual Loop app. It's rather links pointing back to relevant content that the team may need to have access for in the future. But I can begin, of course, adding content in this project scope for marketing. Click into it, it says just start typing, and of course I could do the old fashioned, which is start noting in text some project scope. But if I also click on the / button, you'll see I can now begin to actually format and add other components into Loop that will also be dynamically updated and shared with other people. So I'm going to use a H1 or heading, and I'm going to look at it and just note here for the project outline. I can then left click, and again down here by clicking. Now Loop can be a bit fiddly here, because if you notice you kind of left click away, you're still locked in this point in Loop, and you can't add further content very easily. But all you need to do is add a line break. So hit on the enter key and you'll now start a new line. And with a new line, again, we can use / and we could do another heading or other content. Now at this point, I just want to add effectively just some text. And so I don't need to use any of these actual specific functions in Loop. I can go ahead and then add some relevant content just by typing into this text box. And there we go. I've added some content all around what we're going to be doing for our marketing. And of course, I can paste in content such as this phrase, emotional connection is the key. I can highlight it and do various formatting as well to that content. Very straightforward to do in bringing text content and then doing formatting. But if we add a few line breaks and we can break that down a little, there's our project outline. And again, we can click on the / and we could add some additional content. It might be at this point, we want to bring in a checklist of the activities we need to do to move forward with our project scope. Let's go ahead and add a checklist in here. Here, I'm going to simply add a few points that we can check off for me and my team as we progress the actual project scoping. And there we have it, a nice easy checklist that we can even check off as we go through. And you can actually see visibly when we check those points off, they also show visibly on the screen, and hovering over shows who checked it off. In this case, I'm logged in as Alex. So Alex is the person who checked that item off. But it doesn't just end with text and also checklists. We can also do things like task planning. So again, / here, and we can now go ahead and add a task list into here. So we're going to add a task list, and we can also begin adding some tasks. So whilst I did a quick checklist there, I might want to actually place tasks against people they can track progress of. So let's go ahead and add those 3 we had at the top there in our checklist as tasks inside of our project scope. We'll also add the person it's assigned to and give it a due date. And there we go. I've added a few tasks into our marketing plan within Microsoft Loop. And you do see Loop is telling me I have a problem here. I added in Christy and Irving into our task list. And it is saying here that they won't see this content until it's been shared with them. And they won't be notified until you grant them access. Click to resolve. So if I clicked into Christine here, you actually see it saying, do you want to grant access to Irving and Christine, because they won't see this content unless you're actually going to share that content with them. But at this point, I'm not going to grant them access. I haven't finished with my Loop area here, but I will give them access to the workspace as part of this video tutorial. So at the moment, I'm going to click on X and I'm not going to grant them access. But you can also see on here, other people's changes task list haven't been synced with Planner and To Do. So again, that relates to that I haven't provided access to these relevant people, but we're going to be able to do that very shortly. Now, not only that, of course, we might want to expand our Loop workspace with other areas for our marketing. So we can create additional pages. So if I go into our marketing planning and click on the add page or link, select new page, I can now begin adding a new page. And there we go. Just a couple of minutes, I've added a title, given it a cover image and added an icon, much like we did in our project scope page as well. And again, here we can do similar. /, we can also add those components in, voting tables and so forth. Now I want to use an image here. I could bring an image in if I wanted to. So select image and I can browse to a picture stored on my local computer. So let's go ahead and embed an image here that the team can also review and ensure it's going to meet their requirements. So what I'd like to be able to do is have a voting table for people to effectively vote on whether they think we should use this image in our future marketing material. So we're going to do a / and now we're going to scroll down and look for a voting table. Select voting table and it comes up with a pre-generated voting table for us to use about idea generation. That's not very relevant to what I'm asking in this voting table, so I can give it another name. So we can overtype that to should we use this image in our marketing. And then as you can see beneath that, it's got idea, pros, cons and votes. Well, I don't necessarily need the idea, pros, cons. I can very simply ask the question and decide if people want to use it. So here will be very simply, it'll be yes, no, maybe. So I'm going to just overtype idea and put options. I'm going to put what's your idea, which will be yes. Secondly, no, and the other one might be maybe. So I have 3 different votes here. Now, as you know, yes, no, and maybe don't lend themselves to pros and cons. So what we can simply do is highlight the column by selecting it in the middle, and then we can delete it by selecting delete column. Likewise, under cons, we'll also delete that. And now we're just left with the voting table. That's great. So we now have that available to us. So that is now done. We can sort it, as you can see, and expand the table, but we've actually got a little bit of a voting tracker there as well. So now we're all set. We've created some of our content, 2 pages, some scope, and also a voting table. Let's go ahead and share it with the rest of our team. So there's 3 separate areas we can consider for security in our marketing planning. Now in the Loop app, we have a workspace. So fundamentally, there might be other people I want to bring into my project to be able to look all the content I have in the Loop apps, all our pages and content. To do that, in the top of the screen, you'll see the share button. Select share and then select workspace. Now, as it notes here, access to all pages are going to be granted. So selecting workspace, I can now invite the name or email address to bring the person into our marketing planning so they can also collaborate on this content and have access to it. Now I can then add in the director, which is Nestor, by selecting for Nestor's name, select Nestor and then click on invite. At which point you'll now see Nestor will be added as a member of our marketing planning. So he also will be able to collaborate with the team, have access to all the pages. That's a very simple way of granting access to content in Microsoft Loop. The second way I can share is I can actually share content on the actual page inside of the Loop workspace. So our ideas for marketing material, I can then select the 3-dot menu and I can also add people in. So I could share a page link here, but as we've also shown on the right hand side, we can also click on the share button and we can select page link, access this page only. Select this link here to only share the page inside of the workspace. Now, once we get into this level of detail, we need to be mindful this solution uses what's called sharing links inside of Microsoft 365. And in some cases, the link default can be far too wide than what you actually want it to be. You can see here it says people can toast with a link to edit. That means if I sent this link to someone else in the organization, they could also access this page and make changes to it, even though I didn't want them to. So you can left click into this option and you can change this. You can select specific people with existing access, or the whole organization. So I'm going to put specific people and I can add in the relevant person. So here I'll go in and add in my colleague Miriam, who's another director. I'm now going to click apply and this will grant Miriam access with edit rights to the page. So as you can see, Miriam would now have access. Now at this point I can copy it and I can send an email or Teams message to Miriam, and Miriam could then co-author and co-edit our ideas for the marketing material. That's a second way we can maintain access. The third way, however, also relates to a component. Now we have a separate video tutorial covering Loop components and how powerful they can be across Microsoft Office for content collaboration. Now, loop components allow you to copy a single piece of content, share it across the Office apps, and it all syncs back into Loop into one single area of content. So we can actually secure a loop component separately to the workspace and the page. So in this scenario, we could actually share our voting table with other people. I can simply highlight over the content here, and then I can create a loop component. Click on the little waffle to the left hand side, select create loop component, and you'll now see the loop has highlighted this. I can now go ahead and share it with other people. I only have to do is click on copy component, and it will invoke the sharing link again. And exactly what I mentioned before, click into the link to have people be able to change the security to only the relevant people need access. Or if you're happy, in this scenario, I'm going to share the link so the entire company will be able to vote on this if they would like to in the future. So I can click copy again, and of course I could take that into Outlook and Teams, much like our other video tutorial, and I could share that with the team. And if you wonder how that looks, I've already copied that by selecting that copy component. So I'm just going to paste this into an email message in Outlook for the web, and there we go. It immediately shows that component. I could send it to my colleague, and then Megan and others could be able to vote in our marketing table and have access to that specific component, and they will have security rights, even though they don't have access to the page or the workspace entirely. And here is an email I just sent to Megan. I'm now logged in as Megan, and as you can see, this loop component, Megan can vote inside the email without even needing to go to that loop page. So yeah, I'll just mark here that it's actually fine to use. But of course, you may be looking and go, well, where's the image? And of course, you want to insert that as well in the actual email. But what we're showing here is a loop component can be dynamically updated in Outlook and the Office apps very easily, and that will all sync back into the single place. So now Megan's voted, she can even go a step further. Clicking on the comment icon, Megan can leave a comment. So as you might well note here, I have voted, it's a great image. Click on send, and that adds the comment. And even go a step further and put a love heart next to it. So very simple to do, and all of that syncs back into Loop. In fact, let's go and have a look at that Loop workspace with that component, and we'll visibly see those changes. And there we go, we're now back in Loop. There's Megan's comment, and there's Megan's reaction. Nice and easy, all sync back into our Loop workspace, including that vote that she made. So we also shown in how to use a Loop component, secure it to a certain group of people, and how you can copy it into an Office app. But as I mentioned, check out our other video tutorial to do even more with Loop components. So I'd also like to show you is version control, because in a collaborative environment, changes happen, and sometimes those changes shouldn't have happened. For example, I'm now logged in here, and there's the image we're going to use in our marketing material and the content. It's very easy for me to highlight content and then, oops, just delete it. And then, of course, where's the undo button? Well, I can't see an undo button anywhere here. Of course, I can just do Control Z to bring it back. So if you are struggling, that's certainly possible. But what if you notice the change half an hour later and you didn't know how to get it back? Well, the good news is behind every Loop component in the page lives a version history. Select the three dot menu and you can select version history, and you can see the modifications over the time. So I can easily restore it to an earlier time. In fact, this version here from 157, I could go back to and then also restore. Lastly, we're also interested is looking at also around your ideas. So go to the ideas tab and you can create yourself a page for your own purposes without sharing that with team members at this point. For example, if I click on the plus button here, I could create in here some of my feedback or from evidence for my end of year review with my manager. So I could put here manager feedback, and again I could go ahead and add my Loop content. I could add some content in text. Equally, I can select /. I'll be able to add in components such as a table and so forth, maybe a checklist, a voting table, and even images. So you can use these pages for your own purposes privately without sharing them with others. Now, equally, from the information we shared on today's tutorial, you could happily, again, go and share that with your line manager if you would like. But these ideas areas allow you to create that on-the-fly ideas that's only shared with you up until the point you want to share it with others outside of a workspace. And lastly, just to note that any changes in these notifications will also appear on your notifications bell icon. So if someone mentions you, for some relevant work inside of one of your Loop workspaces or pages or components, check out the bell icon. You can quickly have a view of any mentions, left click into them, and it'll take you to the relevant content. So very straightforward to do, and use a Loop app to bring all of your Loop components and ideas together as a digital canvas for you to collaborate for you and your team. And that's it. You've covered a whole area of Microsoft Loop and using the app to also work more collaboratively and sync content across all the Office apps. If you did like this video, we'd love it to hit the like button. Follow for more great videos like this in the future. And also in the comments below, you will find a link to download our Microsoft 365 ebook, which we created for you. It's totally free. You can go and grab a copy, of course, and use it to even have any more handy tips for you to work in a better way. Otherwise, we'll be seeing you in the next one.